Hi there. My name is David Batsoffen and I host a travel blog called Travel and Things. At the moment, I'm doing a series called In Conversation With, where I chat to people either in the tourism and travel industry or in entertainment. And Fridays is normally our Fun Friday. And in keeping with that theme today, I'm chatting to Jason Goliath. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm amazing, thanks. How are you?
How are you keeping yourself busy during these strange times in which we find ourselves currently?
Man, it's so crazy because I've been busier, I think, during this pandemic than ever before. And I think that's because, I'm at home and I appear to be so accessible. So people no longer have respect for my time, I think, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. So I do breakfast radio on Kaya FM in the mornings, and then I do wonderful, exciting things like this during the day, which is great. So I've been strangely busy with new things. So radio is the only thing from a time that I call BC, before Corona, and that's the only thing that kind of is still the same. And everything else had to pivot, which is this new buzzword that we all have to use.
I know, but ballerinas have been using it for a long time. Oh no, hang on, that's pirouette. There's a difference.
Yes, there is a difference. And I was about to say, look, I'm a lot of things, but I'm no ballerina.
Jason, a question that I've been asking all my guests is, tell me about Jason Goliath in matric. What did you know that this is what you wanted to do? Or if I was to ask one of your teachers about you, would they say he was the guy least likely to whatever it was at the end of that sentence?
Before I answer, maybe I should ask you, what is the language restriction on your show?
There is no language restriction. I have no idea who's watching this. It's non-terrestrial, so you can just be yourself.
That's why then I've got to be honest, because if you were to call a teacher or any of my fellow matriculants from 1998 is when I matriculated, they would have told you that I was a huge douchebag and asshole. I was a monster asshole at school.
Really?
And only because I was a big guy, biggest guy at the school, and I'd been bodybuilding since kind of the end of Standard 8. So I was the fat kid who now all of a sudden had a big chest and could bench press more than anybody else, and played prop, number one tight head. And because I'd been teased my whole life, I'd stumbled onto my wit. And at the time, I wasn't using my jokes for good. I was using them for evil. So the reason I was an asshole was I was a lovely guy. I had lots of friends and I was very popular. But I would tease people to smithereens, to the point that if I bump into people that were at school with me, generally I've got to lead with an apology. So if I see you after 20 years, I've got to go, listen, I'm sorry about those things I said about your legs. I didn't mean it. And it's like, I think in youth, we don't understand the power of our words on people's psychology and how we can really hurt people by the things we say. And, kids are cruel. And I'm not proud of the fact that I, at times, was one of those kids. It wasn't all bad. I mean, I was always a nice guy and always had lots of friends, but I definitely got pulled aside a few times by closer friends that just went, no, you don't have to be that mean. Why are you so mean? Why?
Did you go to school in Johannesburg? Did you grow up?
I went to Florida Park High School. I'm a Joburg boy, born and bred. El Dorado Park, and then stayed in the West Rand and went to Florida Park High School, into Arthur Matthews Primary, then Florida Park High School. So it was, I had a great time. High school was my favorite, and I often reminisce at, I think high school was when I embraced how much I actually love laughing. And because that's the part. I don't remember the syllabus. I remember the jokes. I remember the jokes. That's what I remember.
The only thing I remember from high school, and I was in high school in 1970, so it's 50 years ago.
Yes. A small difference.
A small difference. I walked in Standard 8, back in those days. In Standard 8, you had to make a career, a choice whether you would do history and geography or
Yes.
math and science. And I walked into the maths class, and our maths master, Mr. Lombard, took one look at me and he went, Batsoffen, you're wasting my time. Go and do
and get out of here, man.
Get out of here. And true enough, I had no affinity with math. I still don't. Thank goodness for calculators and the like.
I loved math. Like I loved math, and when so we had that choice also at the end of standard 7. We had the choice of what subjects we were going to take, and I was just I'm dropping history, I'm dropping geography, because those were the homework subjects and those were the study hard, and I preferred logical subjects where I could kind of bullshit my way through to a logical answer and perhaps steal a few marks, because I was by no stretch a good student. I hate reading still, and I hated studying. So I went the maths and science route only because maths made sense, because it was logical. So if I went as part of an equation, 1 + 1 is 2, it's a logical thing. And I can then apply that logic without necessarily studying, which I think was always kind of my gift. So in my matric year, though, we had the most phenomenal maths teacher in the country, I think. His name was Mr. Phillips. And I'm sure he's still a maths teacher, but a proper maths genius. And in February of my matric year, I'll never forget this day, Mr. Phillips, who we all loved and adored, because he wasn't just a mathematical genius, he was also just the cool teacher, you know what I mean? He's the one that would laugh at the prank instead of calling you to the principal's office.
Right.
And he announced to us that he'd been poached by, I think it was Crawford then, one of the big private schools that had poached him, and that he was leaving us at the end of at the end of March, and essentially we'd have to complete the entire syllabus before he left. And of course, Jason thought he was smart, and I was like, I'm not going to be cramming work because you've taken a better job. And I did my own strike. I did a pens down. I was like, I'm not working. He was like, why not? I'm like, because you're leaving us. You're looking after your debit orders, and now I've got to cram math. And I went to extra maths. So what I did was, because I was such an idiot, I downgraded to standard grade maths, because there was higher grade and standard grade. And I downgraded to standard grade maths. And I went for one hour of maths, extra lessons, with a man named Mr. Kruger. Yes, you're taking me down memory lane here. And I got a B for maths. And I didn't write. My matric maths school book had nothing in it. I did no work at school at all. So I did the entire syllabus in 1 hour a week and got a B. And I was the proudest person. I should have been ashamed, but I was proud.
It's amazing how those days mess with us. You know, I still, not as regularly as I used to, but I still wake some mornings believing that I have to rewrite my maths, rewrite my matric. And it's the most terrifying feeling. And my wife is a medical doctor, and she was telling me that she often wakes as well, believing that she needs to rewrite one of her subjects, and that she also hasn't studied. And so I went to a psychologist to ask this question, and she said, you're not alone. It's a regular fear of people that although they passed, because I have no idea, Jason, to this day, I have no idea how I passed matric. I did no work. My mother locked me in the lounge of our house to study the day before every exam. But the night before, I would secrete Mad magazines under the couch cushions and in the fireplace, so that
I was devastated when they were discontinued. Those are my favorites.
She'd lock me in, and then I was allowed out for 15 minutes every hour, and I'd be reading Mad magazines for 45 minutes. So I'm amazed that I passed.
I interviewed my mom on my radio show, and one of my co-hosts asked her what I was like, at school. And I'll quote, her words were, "Oh, Jason kept me very close to God." And when they said why, she said, "Because Lord, I had to pray. I had to pray, please, Lord, I cannot afford for this child to fail, please." So that was the truth. I've always hated studying and school, and I don't know why. But I just never, and I think when you look back, you kind of realize how important some of the subjects were. You kind of realize how important some of the things that you didn't pay attention to were. But hey, I made it. I'm okay, and I can still work out my tax. What else do you need?
You're lucky enough you're earning money to pay tax.
This is true.
With geography, I still wonder why I needed to know what the annual cow population of Argentina was. It's nobody's ever asked me that question. It's never come up in a quiz. Nobody has said, look, if you can answer that question today, we'll give you a job. None of that.
No. I've been to Argentina and they didn't ask me when I got there. They didn't care either.
It wasn't a visa requirement, was it?
No, it definitely was not. I ate a lot of cow. I can tell you they got cows, and I charged them. That's about all the information I have on that subject.
Jason, so after matric, did you sort of go I need a job to fall back on route?
So to answer your question, you asked me about comedy and matric, and then had I had a thought about it. So the answer is no. I was this weird young man that, although I kind of knew that I enjoyed the spotlight and the stage, and I did a little bit of drama at school, but then because of peer pressure, I was an idiot. I didn't do any more. And looking back, that's possibly one of my regrets. But comedy wasn't a thing. 1998. Comedy wasn't the type of profession that you could say to your mom, listen, I'm not going to study, I want to become a comedian, without having you committed for being crazy. It wasn't a thing. And weirdly, I've always been a very logical person, and I very quickly established that the concept of rich and famous was a first world concept. You could, in the third world, you can't be both. You could either be rich or famous, because my mom worked for Mnet for 25 years. And so I was kind of exposed to a lot of events and people of influence of the time. And I would go to some of these events, and I'll never forget, like as a student, she'd employ me, so I'd be 16 years old and I'd be an usher at one of the events, just kind of directing these famous people. And I noticed something, that they were all immaculately put together. I mean, hair, makeup, outfits, they just looked like the money. And they all left in these oil-leaking VW Beetles or City Golfs with plumes of smoke coming out of the back. And I was like, this makes no sense. You know what I mean? There was this perception that people in entertainment all made lots and lots of money, and that wasn't the case. And at the time, if you'd asked me at 18 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answer was rich. That's what I want to be. I want to be rich. And then I realized that you can't be rich or famous. So I felt like I had to choose. And I chose to go and study so that I could go make money, and that's what I did. So I went and studied marketing, and was very aggressive in my career in my 20s. And I only started comedy after failing spectacularly as an entrepreneur at the age of 30. So I only started comedy when I was 30.
So your style of comedy, does it base itself then on your experiences up until that point, or are you more of a joke teller rather than talking about yourself and what's happened to you?
I'm absolutely personal experiential. So I always speak about myself and my experiences, but it's a weird one, just because I try to, I don't know how to articulate. I think this is the best way to articulate this. I don't have a gag book. So I don't have a book of jokes that are written down. What I've got is a book that's got some chicken scratches and ideas in it. So I'll write down a concept, and one of the most painful things about this, the pandemic and the experience that we're going through as entertainers, is Donovan and Nicholas Goliath, who my business partners, they are not joke tellers. They're probably experiential storytellers, but they are scripted. So if you watch them perform, it's beautiful every time, but it's also verbatim every time, because they've written their scripts down. They've articulated their jokes to the point where you have joke efficiency, where you've kind of highlighted how many lines don't have laughs. Do I need that line? Reduce that. And with me, I do all my writing on stage. So if we were chatting about something that made me laugh, I'd go, oh, that made me laugh. I'd write that thought down, and then I'd just walk onto stage and flesh the thought out until I had a bit. And then I have, for some reason, the mental retention to be able to retain that as a joke. So, for example, my last one-man show, which is currently available to be streamed on Showmax, I wrote in my head, it stressed my wife out like you can't believe, because she was like, you're filming for Showmax and I haven't seen a note. I haven't seen You're studying for the thing. I haven't seen, you're freaking me out. And I was like, don't worry. We've got 12 shows to build a show. And she was like, what does that even mean? I said, I've got an idea in my mind of what I'd like to articulate. I understand what the core messaging is. I trust that I'm a funny person, and I'll make sure the show's funny every night. But more importantly, I'll record the show every night for myself, watch it back the next day, make a couple of mental changes, go back out there. And by the end of it, she apologized, because after night one, she was flustered. Night one, we had the press there, and it was a big deal. And she was flustered. She was like, don't ever do that to me again. I felt like you were gambling. You were gambling. The risk was too high. And at the end of it, she was like, I get it. And I'm so, because it was the first proper one-man show that my wife had, in our relationship, had been so close to from a content development point of view. So her learning my style. So from an outsider, she expected me to be writing. And I wasn't doing that. And that was freaking her out. So now that's the main thing that I miss is other than just being on stage and the loveliness of an audience, and the awe and wonder that you get when somebody says your name and there's screams and shouts and applause. Helps me realize how insecure comedians really are, because we need screams, shouts, and applause. But it's so my style is very personal, but my style is also, I realized a while ago that if you're gonna say something and you have an audience, you might as well say something of value. So I'm always trying to be an absolute fool while delivering some messaging that I think is going to make the world a little bit better for whoever's listening. And that's been my kind of my USP, maybe, is that I can talk about farts while trying to change your perception of gender-based violence in the same show. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's that extreme, and I take it that seriously that I address things that people don't like to talk about. So awkward things like farts, but also awkward things like relationships between men and women and the secrets of marriage that the fathers don't share, and they should be. Go watch the show, Menstruation, Surviving a Wife is the name of the show. And just trust me. And before women get upset by the name, my advice is this: before you put a comment here about menstruation, go and watch the show and then comment, because I'm on your side, ladies. I'm on your side.
You talk about farting, and that's a heck of a tenuous link between farting and gender-based violence. But one of the symptoms currently of COVID-19 is the fact that you lose your sense of smell and taste.
Yes.
So what I've been doing is I walk around my house farting and burping. And as long as I can taste what I'm burping and smell what I'm farting, I know that I don't have COVID-19. I don't need stuff stuck up my nose.
I'm stealing that joke, and I'm not giving you any credit. Let us be very clear. I'll be using that and will not be mentioning your name.
No, I don't want stuff stuck up my nose and out my ear. My wife's had 3 of those already, and she tells me it's not pleasant.
I've had 1.
Yeah.
You don't know how deep your face is. That's what I want to say. You think like they got to the level, and I thought that was the end, and then it went through that level to a place that had never been touched before. The cells were activated that were dormant for the 39 years that I've been on Earth. Now I just feel like I've got 1 deep nostril. Like I should have done both. My only regret is I should have said, listen, just open the other one as well. I've got 1 deep nostril and 1 shallow nostril, so my breathing is a little bit vuvuzela-ish at the moment. It's weird.
Wasn't that the opening of it? Was it Star Wars? Something about beyond. One of
Yes. I'm trying to think of the exact word.
Of the exact line. Yeah, I can see the words, but I can. Why am I writing your scripts for you at the moment? No, this is not fair. I'm sorry.
You've got nothing better to do. You might as well help a fellow. You know what I mean? You might as well.
Yeah. You were saying about the it's almost adulation of the crowd, because that's what stand-up comics want. They want to be validated when they step on stage. And
absolutely,
I've discovered a comedy bar in Provo in Utah, and it's called Dry Bar Comedy because Utah is a dry state. They don't allow alcohol there. And this is a mixture of comedians that I've never heard of before, who are some of the funniest stand-up people I have ever seen. And all of it, as you were saying, Jason, is based on their lives. The majority of them are in their 50s and older,
Yeah.
and they are just, and they're not allowed to use bad language. That's the other thing.
No alcohol and no bad language.
No
I got
alcohol,
no
no
business
bad.
there. I
It's
have no business there.
It's some of the funniest stuff. I normally watch at least one when I'm having breakfast before I start work in the morning, so that
Yeah.
I'm in the right frame of mind. And it's given me a whole new
Nice.
sort of train of thought for writing my own material now, so that when we come out of this, I think I'm going to hit the stage once again, because I'm missing
Can't wait.
I'm missing it.
Can't wait.
But now, what do you do at the moment in order? I know you guys are running, and when I say you guys, I mean Goliath and Goliath. It's sort of Goliath and Goliath. And today it's just David versus one Goliath. Luckily, I don't have to have all three of you pick on me. So what is your show that goes out every day at 2 o'clock or Mondays to Fridays? What does that try to achieve for both yourselves, you, Donovan and Nick, and your guests and the audience?
So, I mean, this thing was sprung upon us. I remember interviewing people in Wuhan, kind of early Feb, that were locked down. So South Africans that were stranded in Wuhan. And I remember even while interviewing them, thinking that it was so far away that we would never be affected the way they were. And all of a sudden, within the space of 6 days, every diary booking I'd had for the year, and I was set up, I think, to have the biggest year of my career, everything was wiped out. And I've always been somebody that, you know, I don't panic just because I believe nothing is solved by panicking. And if something is the way it is, you just kind of deal with the way it is. You know, staying focused on the way things were and hoping for that doesn't really achieve anything for me. So we were really confused and in the midst of making some of the hardest decisions ever. And I'm talking about, you know, you don't want to ever, as a comedian, be sitting down with lawyers writing letters to landlords and retrenchment letters to staff because the writing was on the wall. And because I'd been through a failed business before, you know, my team, I mean, I spoke to my lawyers about retrenchment letters before we went into a full lockdown. I spoke to my lawyers about retrenching staff the second the president announced that there would be limited numbers from a gatherings. There was at under 100 people. So, you know, when he made that announcement, I retrenched everybody. And everybody said to me that you're panicking, it's too soon. Don't you think that's a bit dramatic? And I was just like, listen, we've got staff whose livelihood and families depend on us. I don't want to make these people promises that I can't adhere to. Can I, is it going to terribly, I just need to, my mother-in-law's just come back from her
work. This is a beauty. I'll keep this rolling while you do
okay,
what
let
you
me
need
let
to
her
do.
in and sort out the dogs.
There you go. So while Jason wanders off, I can chat about him or about this painting that he's left behind. It almost seems that Jason has left us the stand-in while he goes to let his mom-in-law in. But this is what live is all about. And as they say in the classics, he's back.
I'm back. I'm back. What was I talking about?
I have no idea. You were talking about retrenchment. You were talking about retrenchment.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, you know, we had to make all of those decisions, and as a comedian, you don't want to ever be in that situation. But I also, you know, we had people that kind of depended on us, and I didn't want to make empty promises, and I wanted to make sure that we could at least have everybody know what's up and give everybody a retrenchment package, so that we weren't going to get to the point where there was an expectation of a salary and no money to provide, because I knew that we'd built a business where 90% of our income was dependent on live entertainment. And you know, everybody was very, very grateful for the gesture and obviously understood. And looking back, it was, I think, a very good business decision, as hard as it was. But I think the best business decisions are. And then we were faced with, okay, so what do we do next? And for me, I've always maintained that you got to keep it moving. You know, if you're not happy, move, because you know, if you don't move, you're going to stay close to whatever's not making you happy, or change something. That old saying of, you know, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same result. So you got to keep it moving. I've been describing the pandemic as that motivational speech where they make you run over the hot coals. You know, you've got to do the coal run. And the coal run is COVID-19. That's the coal. And
Yeah.
the only way the coal burns you is if you stop moving.
Yeah.
If you keep moving, your feet don't get burned. So we came up with Goliaths Go Live to keep ourselves moving, because I think a lot of the battle with COVID-19, other than fighting the virus itself, is a mental battle to not give up and not allow the anxiety of this crazy changing environment.
Yeah.
And probably the most devastating thing the human race has been through in the last 100 years, easily the most devastating thing. So we were just wanting to keep it moving. We also felt a slight obligation, not only to our audiences, but we've always been a servant to the comedy industry as Goliath and Goliath. And we wanted to make sure that comedy kept going, that our audiences kept going. And even if it was something that we did for free, that took up a lot of time. And initially we were going to do 21 episodes just for that, 21 days of lockdown, or I think we started 5 or 6 days in, but we were just going to do it. And now we're up to, I think we're in the 80s. I think it's episode 82 or something crazy like that. And it's literally just a hangout where you have 3 guys that have a fantastic rapport, because we are all best friends, chatting to somebody we find interesting. And there's no script, there's no prep, there's no email that goes to the guest saying, please send us a list of questions. It's just as, how are you doing? How have you been coping? And based on your answers, why? So why did you react that way? And we're having a lot of fun with it. And man, it's gonna continue. So it goes out on our Facebook, Goliath and Goliath Facebook page daily, or on skyroomlive.com at 2:00 Monday to Friday. There isn't one this Friday, which is today. I think this goes out. But we are going to keep it going until at least episode 100, I think, and then we'll decide whether we do it weekly or not. But it's been such fun, and it's made us fit, because this is where we perform now in front of these computers. So it's made us fit, and it's helped with an offering, because now we get invited to if your corporate company is having a Zoom meeting and you're tired of these meetings and how boring they can be, and you're getting corona fatigue. You invite us to the meeting, and we do a 15, 30, 45-minute comedy show between the 3 of us, which has also helped keep us going financially. So starting something for free, keeping it moving, led to our income continuing, because we stumbled onto a new product and format and way to do comedy.
And I think a lot of us are, because I know that my blog, as I said to you earlier, I'm a non-traveling travel writer at the moment, and I was looking for something to turn it around, and also to keep me mentally active. And this is where I came up with In Conversation With. And I now head into number 50.
Nice.
But I've recorded well into the 80s already, and I'm having such a blast. It takes me back to my radio days of interviewing people on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's just such a great way of spending time instead of being alone, getting to chat to people like yourself, and people in the travel industry who, like me, are locked down and unable to travel. But this way, we're able to connect, to laugh, to realize that we're not alone in this. Everybody's going.
We can relate. We relate.
We can. As I said to somebody just the other day, we are currently living in a movie, a TV series, and a novel. The only problem is
the genre I don't like.
Well, I don't. You mentioned about Wuhan, and when it happened, and when you mentioned it, I raised my hand for one reason. Every major disaster movie ever written, has only taken place in the Northern Hemisphere. It's never come to South Africa. It stops at the equator, and we get left alone because nobody cares. So I was one of those who thought, this will never come here. Hollywood tells us that it ends at the equator, and who am I to disbelieve that? And then
that is so true.
And then it hit. And then it got a little bit more real. And in the last 2 weeks, I've lost 3 family members, or 3 family members and friends. And that becomes very, very real, where they're alive and 2 days later they're dead. So
terrifying. That's
it is terrifying. Because it's indiscriminate. It can be young, it can be old, and you can't poo-poo it. You can't write it off as conspiracy theory, and you also can't dismiss it, because it will come back and bite you in the ass when you least expect it?
I've been describing it as the first global event where every WhatsApp group on my phone is affected. Because normally only one group is up in arms about whatever topic is trending. And this is the first group where, from the big business boys to my old school friends who are still broke, everybody across the spectrum is affected in some way, shape, or form. And it's been really, really difficult to. I find myself having either a wonderful day or a terrible day.
Yeah.
So I'm either all on top, very few in the middle. And because I have to be on, and because I've got to be, people rely on me being in a good mood and coping, it's added even more pressure. And I've found fuel in gratitude and optimism. So committing to the fact that, and it's so cliched, but I hang on to it and don't take it away from me, the old saying of everything is going to be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. But you must believe that it's going to be okay. You must believe that it's going to be okay, just so that you stop stressing about, is it going to be okay? And then just being grateful for the fact that I've got a full fridge, I've got a roof over my house, which means I'm one of the most blessed people on the planet. What more do I need?
Exactly. I think what it's taught us, and I know we're being a little bit serious now, and people, believe me, comedians can be serious. They're not on all the time. It's taught us that we don't need as much as we thought we did. We fill our homes with stuff because, he who dies with the most toys wins. But it's not that case. We could dispense with 2/3 of what we have in our houses right now and still live a fulfilled and grateful life.
When you watch my show, David, and I keep hinting at this because you should watch it with your wife, because that's what it's designed for couples. So when you watch my show on Showmax, there's a line where I had such a wonderful realization. And this is, I recorded this in October last year. So this is pre even the thought of COVID. Was I realized that the only thing we honestly have is time. Like you say, we exist in this rat race where we assume, or somehow we've been indoctrinated to believe that it's the guy with the most toys that wins. And I realized, thank God, a few years ago that no, it's happiness is the thing, because we can all accumulate as many things as possible. So the only question I want to be asked at the pearly gates is, did you have a good time? Because time's the only thing we have. And I know lots of people that have lots of things that don't have any time to have a good time. I know many CEOs that have got houses in Italy, but they spend 11 months of the year at least having absolutely no fun. And I just went, when I look back on my life, all I want to be able to say is that I had more happy days than sad days, more good days than bad. And I believe that I am responsible for that. Nobody's going to make my day good. Nobody's going to call me and give me happiness. I've got to decide. And so I'm, I almost feel like I'm a happiness ambassador, because I think that people forget the importance of happiness. People forget that we are solely responsible for our own happiness. Other people can perhaps be catalysts and add to it, but nobody should be responsible primarily for your happiness. So if it's your responsibility, then you've got to take it that seriously, and we've got to break away from the thought that it's selfish to make yourself happy, because I realize the happier I am, the happier I'm able to make those that depend on me for happiness. So it's like, it's you know what I mean? It's not selfish. It's just the better I am from a happiness point of view, the happier I can make those around me. So I go, what is the objective? Do you want to make your wife happier? Yes. Then you've got to make yourself happier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying.
It's a weird thing to fight with, but that's what I stand for, man.
No, I hear what you're saying. And as you point out, with those wealthy people who have homes all over the world, but they never get to see them. So what is the point?
No.
There's no, let your company get run by somebody else and you go and sit in the house in Italy. And if necessary, if you want to be that controlling, put in a system that from Italy, you can run your company. You don't have to be in the office. And I think that's also, Jason, what big corporations may start realizing is they don't need 1,400 staff to be in the office every day to be productive. They can be productive remotely.
Definitely realizing. Yeah, and more productive remotely.
For sure. I think every single person that I've interviewed over the last since May has said exactly what you said to me earlier, which is, it's the busiest I have ever been. And yes, it may not be bringing you money, but it's bringing you happiness, as you were saying. I walk into my office at 7 o'clock in the morning. I sit down, I watch maybe an hour of comedy or a show while I have my breakfast, and then I start writing. And I sit at this laptop almost the entire day working at something to keep me occupied and to keep me happy. It's as simple as
your
that.
Responsibility. There you go. It's
done and dusted, you know.
And I know that there are people that will hear this and think that it's cheesy or cynical, and I'm just like, I honestly believe that anybody who thinks that their happiness doesn't lie where their feet are.
Yeah.
And so for me, you've got to find your happy where your feet are right now. So I've had to find my happy with my fat stomach, with my bad credit, with whatever stresses I have. I'm so tired of this vicarious relationship that people have with happiness, where they go, I'm going to be happy when I get a new job, when I get a bigger car, when I get into a relationship. And I'm like, if you're not happy where you are, what makes you think your happiness is waiting there? But I'm also cool with, because I also know business people that have houses all over the world that work 24/7 that are miserable if they're not working. You know what I mean? So it's also, I'm not trying to say that my way is the right way. I'm saying happiness is the right way.
Yeah.
And however you define that for yourself,
that's exactly it. But now with that in mind, I want to pivot for a moment, and I want to ask you about your best gig and your worst gig, and what made them that.
I'll start with my worst one because it's an easy one. I've been doing comedy for 3 months, and somebody called me up and said, "Listen, we'll give you how much time do you have?" Like, because when you start with 5 minutes, and I built that 5 minutes into 10 minutes, and I just kind of got my 10 minutes locked. And this guy says to me, "Listen, can you do 15 minutes? I've got 1,500 rand for you at a fundraising gig out in the East Rand." And I was like, "Listen, I've got 10, but I mean, I could stretch it. And with laughs, often my 10 is a 15. I could stretch it, but I also didn't have any backups. And I get to this gig, and so the only explanation I got was, it's a Jewish fundraiser. That's it. They didn't say any more. So you
don't have to say any more. I know, I can tell you where this story is going, because I can raise my hand as well. But tell me yours.
So, man, I will never forget. I arrived, and in my mind, for some reason, when they said fundraiser, I pictured, varsity kids. That's what I'd pictured. I'd pictured 18 to 25-year-old hordes of them that were just gonna love it. And when I arrived, there were 8 Rolls Royces parked outside in the kind of VIP parking bay, and that's when you start getting that scent of doom. And as I went in, it was the most serious event I had ever seen, with some of the wealthiest, snobbiest people in South Africa, like people that only come out of their estate for this particular event once a year. And I was supposed to go on at 8, and then they said, "No, they're running late. Can you go on at 9? And then they said, "We're still running late. Can you go on at 10? And eventually they said, "Can you go on after dessert?" Which was now at this point like 20 past 10 o'clock. Kevin Fine, and I will name and shame Kevin Fine, who you all know. He's now head of Jacaranda, if you want to send him an email. Kevin Fine was hosting the event, and he was so tired of this event by the time it was time for me. They'd announced that there was a dessert buffet. So everybody in the room got up, went to the buffet. The event organizer came outside. We were standing outside the little balcony backstage, and said to him, "Listen, we're out of time. Bring the comedian on." He didn't even go back onto the stage to gather the audience for me before bringing me on. He announced me from outside in the following way, and I quote, "A man with a rather unfortunate surname to be performing at an event like this. A Goliath is among us," he said. Those were his exact words. Hold on one second. Lily, Lola. Sorry, those are my dogs. So he was like, "A Goliath is among us. Ladies and gentlemen, please put I got little dashings, and they're going crazy today."
Don't worry about it.
I don't know why, but they're so adorable. They got jerseys on. They're so cute. And that's how he brought me on. So I walked onto stage and there was nobody there except a couple of the old bullies. And you know, those old bullies that they don't go to the buffet themselves. Their wife goes and dishes up like jelly and custard. And I started and I said the word cuck. And I'll never forget the look on the chief money man. You know, there's always the chief, the oak with the big bucks, the oak that tops up. Like if we don't raise as much funds, this oak just swipes a card. And this oak, I'll never forget him just leaning over and doing this move. And somebody walked up to the stage and asked me to leave in the middle of my set. It was the most devastating. There were two tables of youngish people that were loving it, and they were rolling with laughter. But once the bully did this, even they denied me. Even they stopped laughing. They were like, protocol. We have to all stand together. So that was my worst. My best, I've had too many to mention. I've had dreams come true. I've performed for Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud network with Kevin Hart watching in the audience in Montreal. I've performed. I recorded a Comedy Central special at JFL in Montreal. I've hosted gigs in Switzerland that have flown in trending comics from all around the world for Montreux Comedy. Comedy's just been a gift to me. So to choose one is near impossible because I've had so many experiences that even in my wildest dreams I couldn't have thought would happen. Comedy's taken me to places that, I mean, to date I'm just in awe, and I gasp at the fact that I've done those things. So my best, there are so many, and that's because I can't explain to people how delicious it is when it goes right. Listen, when it goes wrong, it's the other side of that same coin. It's the most miserable sensation ever. But when it goes right.
If I'd set this up properly, at this particular point, I would have gone, please welcome to my studio, Kevin Fine. Kevin, would you like to answer?
I love Kevin Fine, though. Kevin, you know I love you, boy.
Kevin was my station manager at a particular community radio station before Jacaranda poached him.
Yeah.
Jason, it's been an absolute gas talking to you. It really and truly has. I want people now to go and watch Goliath and Goliath and Goliath at 2:00.
They must do two things. They must watch Goliath go live Monday to Friday, except what is tomorrow's date? So except Friday the 17th, we're not having a show. But Monday to Friday, we're on at 2:00 live. And if you want to catch up tomorrow, though, you can just go onto the Goliath and Goliath Facebook page. All of the episodes are there that we've done, and we've done over 80 now. But on the 31st of July, we've got Goliath Comedy Club live, which we're still trying to be a patron. We've owned comedy clubs and still do. And in an effort to just keep putting food on the tables of entertainers, the three of us, Nicholas Donovan and myself, host a stand-up show on the internet. It happens on the 31st of July. Tickets will be available for a week from the 31st, so you could stream it at any time. But it's live at 8:00 on the 31st of July. Tickets are available at Quicket. Go and search Goliath Comedy Club. We've got Lindy Johnson, who's from Paarl, and just this amazing young lady that is just blowing up the comedy scene. We've got Sia Saya, who is one of my just all-time favorite acts. And then our headline act is Skulk Poseidon. So big act. Tickets are only $60 per household. Please go and buy a ticket and create a comedy club in your home where you can talk through the show. Go to the bathroom whenever you want.
This has been In Conversation With, and I've been chatting to Jason Goliath. Jason, thank you so very much for being a guest today.
The honor was all mine. Thank you for having me, David.